Well, no, I'm not in a good mood. No, that was terrible. Oh my God. Yeah, Robbie here says I've got a dark cloud over my head. Well, friends, we'll get to everything you need to know. So buckle up. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you, as always, by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. 800-304-2000, 800-304-2000, offices in Nevada and California. Now, the election happened yesterday. The results are in. It's not a good day for Republicans. Great day for the Democrats. No two ways about it. Now, obviously, the big wins in New York, in New Jersey, in Virginia, in California. I understand these are all states that Trump lost in 2024. And we'll come back to that. But there are a number of local elections in deep red counties in states like Georgia that Republicans had no business losing, and they lost them anyway. So we have to address that as well. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything today. I'm rolling my sleeves up. I'm, by the way, sick and tired of carrying water for people who can't help themselves. So I'll get into that as well. Now, credit has to be given where credit is due. And the number one thing that we as Republicans who want to win can't do is to underestimate our enemy. What the Democrats did here, when you look back at it in some of its parts and how the steps rolled out, was brilliant. I'm talking about the government shutdown. It didn't go exactly according to their plan, but it went pretty damn close. And here's what happened. The Democrats shut down the government. They withheld the votes necessary for the Senate to approve the clean resolution, a continuing clean resolution, right? That's what they did. Now, the second step of this, of course, was that they held a giant rally. They called it the No Kings Rally. And no kings, right? What does that imply? Trump is a king. He's aided and abetted by his court jesters, a.k.a. the Republicans. In some cases, they've even gone as far as to include the Supreme Court in this. The court supporting the king. Now, what do kings do? Kings do things like doing away with the filibuster, right? That's what kings do. They act in opposition to convention, to tradition, to politeness. They run roughshod over the people. So they held the rally, and they did in some way get into Trump's head and into Republicans' heads. It goes, okay, well, we're not kings. We have decorum. We're not going to get rid of the filibuster. We're going to talk to you guys. We're going to work with you. We're going to do what we do. And Republicans, I don't know how else to tell, and I'm speaking to members of Congress who still are hung up on this. You got taken for a ride, okay? Because the fact of the matter is, after the so what happened next? No kings, the filibuster's in place, Democrats holding firm, toying here and there with Republicans. Oh, we'll maybe we will, maybe we won't. Votes get held. But they held firm, right? Democrats hung in there. And allowing a minority party in the Senate to hijack a government that is run by Republicans. A Republican president, Republicans in the Senate holding the majority, and in the House, held hostage literally by 7 angry Democrats, is absurd. And it made Trump and the Republicans look weak. You want to know why we lost Hispanics? You want to know why we lost African Americans? You want to know why we lost parts of the Trump coalition? Number one, Trump wasn't involved in this fight. Not nearly enough. And number two, Republicans allowed themselves, and I'm pointing at the Senate. Senate Republicans allowed Democrats to emasculate the Republican Party. If the tables were turned, the Democrats would never, and I mean never, have allowed this to happen. We lost because we looked weak. And folks, I'm just enough of a party guy and a supporter to not put this kind of negativity out there before an election. But now that the election's over, I'm not carrying water for these people anymore. There's a reckoning that needs to happen, and we've got a very short window to do it. I always say that, that a few months even can be a political eternity. And that is somewhat true. But with the wind in their sails, the Democrats are going to take the victories that they had last night and turn that into an absolute bloodbath come November 2026. It's an awakening. That's what this is. And I think, I'll get to the good news if there is any good news. I think the worst thing that could have happened last night, and it was one of the last results to come in, Prop 50 in California obviously was passing. All of the races, even Jay Jones in Virginia, the guy's like, I'm going to shoot some Republican kids, some little fascist kids. I'm going to shoot them in the head. That guy won. So I'm looking at all these races, and of course the mayoral race, Mamdani races, those results were coming in quite late, around 5:30, 6 o'clock or so our time. And I remember thinking in my mind, the last thing we need is for Mamdani to lose. All these Democratic wins and then Mamdani to lose. What we need is Mamdani to win. And thank goodness, I'll explain why this is important here as we go through the show. So Mamdani has won, and as much as it pains me to lose New York, and as much as I've have been, I think, quite outspoken against the likes of George Will and others on our side who have said, well, once in a while, you just got to give them a taste of good old socialism. I think giving our greatest American city a taste of socialism is a terrible idea, but we're here. So it was, all of it went through. It all happened. And I don't think, look, this is it, right? The basic fact is that I am convinced Republicans love Trump. Don't buy into the poll numbers. It's not Trump. If Trump were not a powerful force within our movement, they wouldn't have framed Prop 50 as an anti-Trump measure. Over 90% of respondents to exit polling in the state of California believed that Prop 50 was an initiative to impeach Trump. They were under that impression, meaning that the branding here, right, it was all about Trump. And of course, the crazy Californians, Republicans aren't talking to exit pollsters. Very important thing, right? So but polling is always going to be skewed toward Democrats in California or people that are anti-Trump, because people who are pro-Trump keep to themselves or not talking to the pollsters. Regardless, they framed it, and if Trump wasn't a force, Newsom would have made this about Trump. He would have made it about congressional Republicans. So this is just my point here, okay? Trump remains a potent political force. Republicans like him, a lot of independents like him, and some Democrats like him. Tell me one person, and Robbie, I'm pointing over here to producer Robbie because he's my test subject on this. I know you've come a long way on Trump. You and I have felt differently about him at different times, but I know you like him. Mike Johnson, John Thune, anybody in Congress, right, that's in congressional leadership, do they excite you? Robbie's giving me a blank look and kind of shaking his head. No, they don't. And guess what? You and I are not alone. And I know Mike Johnson. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. And maybe, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, he's the guy needed to hold together this fragile House majority, and he's effective at wrangling the cats in Congress. But as far as a brand and a face of the Republican Party in the legislative branch, it's just a non-starter. And by the way, same on the Democrat side, right? I'm not here to Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, clowns, complete and total clowns. And their side doesn't like them either. But the problem is on the Democrat side, there is a wing of the party that's already in Congress that is deeply popular with the base, the Mamdani wing. And they're waiting there. They're going to take over. I mean, Schumer's history. So whatever win this created for the party, still I maintain, Schumer's, politically speaking, a dead man walking. But again, the point is this. In the midterms, it's not going to be a referendum on Trump. It's going to be a referendum on Congress. And if Republicans are held hostage by the filibuster and don't get a robust agenda through that was popular, that Trump won on nationally, if the Republicans don't do it, don't nationalize, don't unite with Trump and create a coherent, forceful, optimistic vision of future for America, it's over. It's over before it even started. Sam Mirejovsky, here on the What's Right Media Network, back in a moment.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Folks, listen, the only person right now in government that really gets it and sees this for what it is Donald Trump. Okay, so every conversation that begins with, but Trump is the problem, is complete and total nonsense. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, post-election Sam is always something to behold. Let me tell you, sometimes it's good news and I'm all excited and positive and then sometimes, like today, it's bad news. And I'm still excited and I still can be positive, but I'm also not going to sugarcoat it. Last night's results are a wake-up call. And I love that Trump, by the way, this morning calls congressional leadership, and particularly the Republicans in the Senate, to the White House, has breakfast, gives them a pep talk, which was public for the cameras, and then the meeting went behind closed doors. They kicked all the reporters out. There's been some leaks of what's being said, but Trump essentially is pushing Senate Republicans to do away with the filibuster. I've brought this up a couple times already. We talked about this in the lead up to the election yesterday. So, okay, Trump is right. The shutdown is just an example. If Democrats continue to just obstruct Republicans every step of the way, Republicans are going to lose the House, lose the Senate, and even worse yet, we will spend the second 2 years of Trump's second term in office mired in investigations, in impeachment proceedings, in more kabuki political stunting that the Democrats are very good at, and we as Republicans cannot continue to downplay this. And it will derail Trump's efforts to fix the country. We're going to have a replay, and I mean this, we're going to have a replay of 2019 and 2020. We're going to have another round of absolute nonsense launched at our president against an agenda that a majority of the country voted for. I am so fired up today. So here's Trump's remarks this morning around 8:30 local time in D.C., carried live on Fox News about what he thinks basically the takeaway from the election is and what needs to be done and what the Democrats would do if they had the power.
The first day, they're going to pack the court. They're going to make D.C. a state, and they're going to make Puerto Rico a state. So now they pick up 2 states. They pick up 4 senators, okay? You think you have problems? They're going to do all of the things. They're going to pick up electoral votes. It's going to be a very, very bad situation. And it's done. It's done. As soon as they attain power. Now, if we do what I'm saying, they'll most likely never attain power because we will have passed every single thing that you can imagine that it's good and all good for the country. And there'll be no reason to. If we don't do that, people will say they're not doing much and they're in power.
Yeah, listen, he is right. I get it. I mean, in a perfect world, the Democrats would not be socialist communists, barbarians at the gate. In a perfect world, the Democrats would have as much decency, so-called decency, as Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins continue to have, caring about how things may seem and politeness to the minority. Politeness. Democrats have any politeness to the minority when we're in the minority? Frickin' A, people. Listen to the man. Trump is right. How many mistakes have Republicans made not listening to Trump? And the biggest, I do not even want to listen to a single person who right now is saying that yesterday's results from the election are Trump's fault. I want to hear it. There are Republicans that win, and there are Republicans that lose. We are very good at losing, by the way. We are. And before Trump came around, we were the party of losing. I have to say that there are 2, and I mean this exactly and precisely, 2 political forces in my adult lifetime. Well, it's a little before my adult lifetime, but my politically conscious lifetime. Because I'm before Reagan. Since Reagan, I'll put it this way. Since Reagan, to me, there are 2 political forces in the Republican Party that have actually made a difference, that have won, that have delivered victories, meaningful victories, and meaningful policy changes for the betterment of the country. You ready for this? Buckle up. Number 1, Donald Trump. And number 2, and it pains me to say this because I know him personally and always been a bit of a jerk to me, but Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich, contract with America. This ought to be studied by every Republican out there. And here we are, right? One of the people that could have been the next Newt Gingrich, who was already on his way of being the Newt Gingrich, they shot him in the neck. And then they laughed. And they laughed publicly. And their own people reelected them. And that's the Democratic Party of today. It's not just about Mamdani. Oh, Sam, it's just Mamdani in New York, you know. It's not the Democratic Party as a whole. The results in Virginia, where they rallied around a Democrat who wanted the children of a political opponent to suffer the same fate as Charlie Kirk, is everything you need to know about the current Democratic Party. Everything. I tell you, it's a fight. It's a fight for life. You know, all the hyperbole out there. Remember, I mentioned Cernovich and a few others have been saying that they're going to come for us door to door. And Bill Maher goes, ha, 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 ha. Never going to happen. Yeah, these people in power are dangerous. And we got to start playing like they are dangerous. But these Republicans in the Senate would actually rather have Trump lose than for them to give up their niceties in Congress. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Media Network. Bottom of the hour, be back after the break. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here, the voice of reason in these troubled times behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, recovering here from the election. And not recovering. I'm invigorated, actually. I'm invigorated. We, have to know what enemy we're dealing with. And that's why I got a little bit somber there at the end of last segment. I just, forgive me. But back to the strategery of it all. The Democrats are being strategic. Their strategy here was very clear. Number one, shut down the government. Number two, no kings. Number three, you want to do away with the filibuster? That's something kings do. And Republicans all go, we're not kings. Don't call us that. We're not like Trump. Number four, drag it out until the election. Number five, say it's the Republicans who shut it down. The Republicans are in power and the Republicans aren't doing anything. How would you possibly, as a Republican voter, be excited to show up to vote in this election? Republicans are affected by the shutdown too. We want to see our party fight for us and for the country. What the F is this? Pardon my feistiness. Now, I see some of you here emailing me about, Sam, be careful about the filibuster. This is just opening up a can of worms, right? But you're giving up first move advantage. You play chess. It's a big deal in chess if you go first, if you can make the first move, if you're white on the board. It is. Now, I am absolutely convinced, looking at what the party has done, the Democrats have done over the last 60 days in particular, from rallying around Jay Jones and rallying behind and supporting Jay Jones in Virginia, the would-be baby shooter, and then the shutdown and this whole orchestration, this entire political plot. I mean, these are people, like the Democrats will celebrate a man getting shot in the neck, will rally behind a guy who openly talks to a Republican about killing another Republican. Zero restraint. And also a party, again, who will shut down the government and bring misery to the entire country in hopes of bringing down the economy and in hopes of winning an election, in hopes of damaging their political opponents. I mean, these people are despicable. You don't think that these people will, in an instant, they get power in the Senate, if they win in November of 2026, do away with the filibuster the very next day? These are revolutionary forces. This is not your dad's Democratic Party, okay? That ship has sailed. Take a look at Mamdani. Take a look at Chuck Schumer on his way out, getting replaced by AOC. The Squad, the Muslim Brotherhood, literally, in some cases, in some of these vile congressmen, becoming senators and becoming the new Democratic leadership in the Senate. And by the way, these people will have much higher approval numbers from the Democratic base than our guys do, because we seem to continuously send weenies to Congress. Complete effete weenies. Oh, Robbie, see, I told you today, I'm heated. Hey, Mamdani's a real threat. I'm going to be very clear about this. His victory speech, did you see this? His victory speech was not necessarily the kumbaya that you usually do when you win. He quoted some real interesting people. Avowed socialists. Nehru, for example. Here's the clip about Nehru. It's over a lot of people's heads, but I'll explain to you why this is so unbelievably dangerous.
Standing before you, I think of the words of Jawaharlal Nehru. A moment comes but rarely in history when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. Tonight we have stepped out from the old into the new. So let us speak now with clarity and conviction that cannot be misunderstood about what this new age will deliver and for whom. This will be an age where New Yorkers expect from their leaders a bold vision of what we will achieve, rather than a list of excuses for what we are too timid to attempt.
What do you hear here? What do you hear here? I'm repeating myself, so it sounds funny. I mean, I hear, first of all, Nehru brought socialism to, founded the Socialist Party in India and basically turned the country upside down. Absolute wrecking ball for India. India is still recovering from that disaster. But what do I hear? I mean, you cannot discount, and I told you this, folks. I've been talking about this guy forever, and here we are. I told you months and months ago that he was going to win. I told you this is bad. I warned you even before the primary in the summer. I told you he would be a political force within the Democratic Party, and there's two ways of looking at it. Now, the good news, and the reason why I am glad he won, is because at least this wave of Democratic victories will always be associated with the disaster that will come of this bozo. The problem is this bozo cannot be underestimated. This bozo will have great political victories. His movement is just getting started. Now, everybody said that Zohran Mamdani would be stopped. If there was a stopping of him, it would be Curtis Sliwa, the goofy, cat-loving, beret-wearing Republican getting out of the race. I was not a fan of this thinking. I didn't think that the Republican needed to sacrifice himself for the sake of the Democrats not to be able to get their SHI you-know-what together. But anyway, here we are. Republicans ran a terrible candidate. And the Democrats had some terrible people in there too, right? Eric Adams, we've forgotten about Eric Adams. Corrupt as the day is long. And it was the Biden administration that went after Eric Adams and sabotaged him deliberately. It was the radicals in the Biden administration that deliberately set the stage for Zohran Mamdani's ascension. Nobody talks about this. These forces have been at work for a while. So anyway, we've got the Zohran Mamdani guy. He's here. He's going to be mayor of New York. And he's a political force to be reckoned with. What do I hear here? I hear Obama. Remember how many times people on our side listened to Obama speeches and said things like, well, he sure talks nicely, but it's nothing there. Come on, Sam, it's nothing there. And I remember at the time going, but you're forgetting who the electorate is. You're forgetting that the people, I mean, not you and I mean, we're well informed. We follow politics. You listen to this program. You're ahead of the curve. But there are a lot of people who just don't know. Rush would always call this, the drive-by media and just go quick takes, and and people that digest that have no real idea and have been propagandized. So they're feelers, right? They feel, they don't think. Zohran Mamdani feels great if you don't believe in anything, if your head was erased in college. And look at the numbers, by the way, the college educated versus working class. He doesn't have working class support. He has college educated support, just like the Bolsheviks in Russia. Support didn't come from the working classes. They just cloaked themselves in it. Many weeks ago, and I got a lot of guff for this, I said here on this program that we were in the midst of the great American communist revolution of 2025. I didn't say it was going to be successful. I'm just saying that there was an actual honest-to-goodness revolution that when we trace it back, the history books will begin writing about it around the time that we are in currently. And it ought to terrify you. It ought to scare the living daylights out of you. It scares me to death. This is very persuasive, right? This guy is laying it on. And by the way, he's full frontal when it comes to his identity, his politics, who he is. Listen to this.
The conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
Yeah, we have a problem. We do. And it's about time that we take it seriously. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. What's Right show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, day after the election. Oh, I have to adjust my headset here. It's my head is throbbing, I think, from this the show today, which is I'm just trying to get it all out. And folks, forgive me. There's so much to cover. And what I know what. Oh my gosh! Well, it's some of the interviews of voters. Some of this exit polling is horrifying. I'll give you an example. Prop 50 in California. Prop 50 in California, they did a report on this last night. And this is Fox News, Sandra Smith last night, going through some of the exit polling, right? This is where they ask people questions when they're leaving the poll place. What did you vote for? What was yes or no? You know, why? And not everybody talks to exit pollsters. For example, I would never talk to an exit pollster. I'm not going to tell them what I vote. I want to get into it. I want to get in my car. I want to go home. So here is the takeaway of what the exit polling revealed. And just getting ahead of it. I mean, people don't know anything. They're basically, I don't know what you're doing in California, but the people are all over the map.
The reason voters said they voted yes on Prop 50, 82% of the case, 8 out of 10 voters say it was to counter the GOP changes, not because they saw it was the best way to draw those district lines. Now, if you go back and look at those who said no to the vote, they said their reasoning to do so is that they saw this as not the best way to draw those district lines, while only 34% said it was to stop the Democrats from adding seats.
Okay, pause that right there. Why is this important? Well, when they asked the Democrats, right, by and large, I'm guessing people who are voting no are Dems. Voting yes on the redistricting, on the gerrymandering plan are Dems. They're doing it. We're going to counter what the Republicans are doing and stop Trump. And on the Republican side, they're like, no, it's not majority, a large majority, 2/3, basically are like, no, this is not the way to draw lines. I want my congressman to represent the area that I live in, not throwing in a bunch of cities that, you know, are in some cases 100 miles or more away from me that have nothing to do with me. So the Republicans, in other words, in California are the sane ones. And the Democrats they're willing to completely mess up their state and spend hundreds of millions of dollars they don't have and putting these districts in place and then removing them because they expire, all just to spite Trump in a state that is $50-60 billion in the hole. I mean, make it make sense. Anyway, the report last night on Fox News continues.
In Congress, a couple other things we're taking away from what voters said there in California. We asked the voters and how they would actually like to see these lines drawn. The irony of this, Trace, is that 9 out of 10 voters, even more so, said they'd like to see this done by a nonpartisan commission, not the party in power. Well, that was preempted with the outcome of this vote.
Wow. Okay. So there it is, right? Unbelievable. And I got to tell you, they're literally voting against something that they believe in, but they're all over the map. And here's an interview with the New York City couple after voting for Mamdani. They're asked, why are you voting for Mamdani? Why did you vote for him? Why did you support him? And again, it comes down to just the feels.
And what about the government-run grocery stores? Do you think that that's a model that could work?
Yes.
And
I
why?
think there's too many hungry people and too many potatoes here that are $5 a pound.
Yeah, you got to lower the prices. Is there anything else about Zohran that gets you excited about him?
I'm excited that he gets young people excited, and I'm excited to see people standing in line, hopefully, to vote for something new.
And last thing, the number one comment I get on some of my videos is that socialism doesn't work. It's been tried many times. Why do you think it'll work?
This isn't socialism he's talking about, social democracy. You know, government should work to encourage people to thrive and be successful. Everybody thrive. It shouldn't be a matter of it should be equality, not supremacy. It should be a matter of bringing everybody up and not just having a few people with entirely too much money and too much decision.
Look at these people. Those of you not watching the Sam Cam can't see them. They're nice looking couple. Appears to be, it could be Central Park. I don't quite recognize the spot, but they're in a park in a nice part of I presume, Manhattan. These are people that I venture to guess live in a $5 to $10 million apartment. They have it made in the shade. They've already made their money. Everything's paid for, and you know they've lived their life. I mean, the policies they're voting for and supporting here likely would have prevented them from getting where they are. But now that they have it, and this is a fundamental, brain virus that a lot of people get when they get successful, they start to feel guilty about their success. They forget the climb because the climb's hard. I mean, maybe he inherited his money. I don't know. But I'm just saying, for if he was a self-made guy, we tend to forget after we've gone through a battle, we forget the hard times. It's part of our hardwiring and just, evolutionary biology. We're hardwired to forget the bad and focus on the good. And so we the struggle becomes a distant memory, and people they feel guilty. This is why there's so much liberalism and leftism in Hollywood. Because George Clooney doesn't remember or forgets quickly that it wasn't easy. It didn't come easily to him. That there were times where he thought he wasn't going to make it. Where he was stacked in an apartment with however many roommates. I don't know, George, whatever. The average, Hollywood person that makes it. For every person that makes it in Hollywood, there's thousands that don't. And so they just feel like they got lucky. And maybe they did. But they also put in a tremendous amount of work. I mean, nobody gets handed that on a platter, but they forget about it. And then they feel guilty. And then they have to virtue signal because these people are fundamentally weak and they're not that smart. They look good on camera. People feed them lines. They have scripts written to them by actually smart people, but they themselves are nothing but a blank canvas. And they're in this environment They feel bad. They've got all these millions suddenly. And they're worried that people will come after them with pitchforks. And so they say, wow, I just want to excite. I love that young people are excited. And this has to be this is social democracy. Social democracy. Social democracy by whatever. Okay, Zohran Mamdani is not talking about social democracy. He's a democratic socialist. He is a socialist. He's quoting Karl Marx, seizing the means of production. And these are people that are going to be very bewildered when suddenly the city comes to seize their business, or maybe these people have a rental apartment. Maybe they've got a little Airbnb that they operate. Maybe they got an extra apartment for when their kids come into town to stay at. Suddenly the socialists go, well, you know what? You don't need 2 apartments. One of them's vacant. We're going to take it. Yeah? And then they're sitting around going, oh, what? This is the same way that Europeans are getting raped and murdered on trains and stabbed left and right. And, well, what? Why is this happening? I don't know. Maybe you voted for open borders again and again and again and again. You can't save people from their own stupidity, unfortunately. That's why I'm worried. Sam Mirejovsky, back after this. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here, the What's Right Show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust with your personal injury case. 1-800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000, because you deserve what's right. All right, so folks, obviously, reactions here to the election. J.D. Vance wrote on X something that I thought was really good. He wrote, a quote, I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states, but a few thoughts. Number one, Scott Pressler, and we know him, right? He's the gay giant Republican. He's very tall. He's got long brown hair. He happens to be gay. And he's a huge door-knocking operation, has been successful in getting out the vote. TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it, and this again is J.D. Vance. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is low propensity. Now, you hear that term, by the way. It's my commentary here. You hear low propensity voter, meaning Republicans don't show up to vote. We also don't do ballot harvesting very well. We don't, we're always suspicious of a scam and something. And by the way, a lot of Republicans this cycle just weren't excited about congressional Republicans. So why go out and vote? So J.D. Vance says, yeah, and it means we have to do better at turning out voters than we have in the past. Second, again, Vice President J.D. Vance on X yesterday. We need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country. And that's the metric by which we'll ultimately be judged in 26 and beyond. 3, the infighting is stupid. The infighting is stupid. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. If you care about those things too, let's work together. Yeah, why are we fighting about Israel, and why are we spending time? And it's what the Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes' want of the world is to distract us with their sideshow Bob antics. So this is J.D. Vance. Now, let's see. We've got over 90% now of the vote in New York. Mamdani got 50% of the vote. Over 50% of the vote. Andrew Cuomo, 41%. Curtis Sliwa, 7.1%. Look, if every single Curtis Sliwa voter went over to Andrew Cuomo, Cuomo still would not have won. I mean, that's as of the last numbers that I have here written down. So the margin still would have been a 1.7, almost 2%, let's say, victory for Zohran Mamdani. And that is if Curtis Sliwa converted every one of his voters over to Andrew Cuomo. I'm not saying anybody for Sliwa would have voted for Mamdani. I'm just saying that not every Sliwa voter would have gone for Cuomo. There's no way. This was a repudiation of old Democrats. Andrew Cuomo, as a refresher, comes from a New York political dynasty. His father was a popular governor. Mario Cuomo. That's right. Didn't get the job done. And why? Because Cuomo's despicable. And one thing I didn't do here, and I hope you'll all note it, is I didn't prostrate myself to Cuomo. I didn't tell you or tell my listeners that I have in New York to vote for Cuomo. You know, I'm sorry, I just couldn't do it. The specter of what he did during COVID it disqualifies him from holding any public office. Now, am I thrilled that Mamdani's in? No, of course I'm not. But is it important for people not to pile on Sliwa? That's just low information, low IQ stuff, right? I mean, anybody that's out there on social media that's pushing this and getting us agitated against Sliwa is sort of missing the numbers. And they may, as stuff comes in, it may alter slightly, but I just do not see a path forward for Andrew Cuomo. Mamdani got over half the vote. I mean, that's it. Doesn't matter how many candidates there are. He's the winner. So, by the way, his speech, a lot of people said it was dark. A lot of people said it was dark. And Van Jones, actually one of the first people after it aired, speaking to a panel, including Scott Jennings, basically said as much. He thought it was a missed opportunity to be conciliatory as one would be after winning so decisive a victory.
That speech appealed to some, but I think he missed an opportunity. I think the Mamdani that we saw on the campaign trail, who was a lot more calm, who was a lot warmer, who was a lot more embracing, was not present in that speech. And I think that Mamdani is the one you need to hear from tonight. There are a lot of people trying to figure out, can I get on this train with him or not? Is he going to include me? Is he going to be more of a class warrior even in office? I think he missed a chance tonight to open up and bring more people into the tent. I think his tone was sharp. I think he was using the microphone in a way that he was almost yelling. And that's not the Mamdani that we've seen on TikTok and the great interviews and stuff like that. So I felt like there's a little bit of a character switch here where the warm, open, embracing guy that's close to working people was not on stage tonight. And there was some other voice on stage. That said, he's very young. And he just pulled off something that's very, very difficult. And I wouldn't write him off, but I think he missed an opportunity to open himself up tonight. And I think that will probably cost him going forward.
Well, Scott Jennings just looking like, I mean, what? I don't even, Van Jones is wrong about so many things. I'm just bringing this forward. You can't be like, oh, where was Mr. Nice Guy? Oh, where was the nice communist? Where was the nice communist revolutionary? Huh? Once they get power, they stop being nice. By the way, this is I hate to say it, but it's an Islamist thing too. When they're in the minority, they demand and beg and plead and want respect, claim Islamophobia and oppression and this, that, and the other. And when they become the majority, minority rights don't matter one bit. And since these are the people taking over Democratic politics, this is one other point I'm going to make about the filibuster. The new Democrats that come into town riding a wave of victories because Republicans are trying to be nice are not going to show any mercy to the new defeated minority. Well, Scott Jennings, yeah, well, you could see he jumped right in here. This was Jennings' comment after Van Jones gave that little take.
Scott?
Oh, are you saying he wasn't the unifying voice of a generation that you predicted mere moments ago? Axe, where was the man that you predicted would not slice and dice the? Look, guys, he started his speech by quoting Eugene Debs, who ran for president of the United States 5 times as the Socialist Party of America candidate. He repeatedly attacked people in this. No, I know my socialists. I keep a close eye on them.
Yeah,
I work here. So here's the thing. He went after everybody that he thinks is a problem. People who own things, people who have businesses. He said an interesting quote: "No problem too large for government to solve."
Or too small, important.
And so when you think of the world that way, that every problem, no matter how small or how large, is something for government to do, let me just decipher this for you. Tax increases as far as the eye can see, which means the people who need to provide jobs to the young people that you say need jobs are going to flee as quickly as they possibly can. I think this was a divisive speech, and he clearly sees the world in terms of the people who are oppressing you and the oppressed. And he said the oppressed are now in City Hall.
That's exactly right. And he's been saying this stuff unapologetically for years. What was this? This is from 2021, so it's 4 years ago. It's not, ancient history. Mamdani talks about seizing the means of production. He talks about this stuff openly. Listen.
And we have to ensure that we are unapologetic about our socialism. There are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it's the end goal of seizing the means of production, where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, in the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other.
There it is. He was unabashed about all this stuff for years. And then suddenly, by the way, in this video, he appears in some Ugandan little tunic, but, put on a suit, put on a smile, donned the snake suit of respectable, Western, democracy, democratic process, political activism. And the New Yorkers, supposedly some of the most sophisticated, intelligent people around, bought it hook, line, and sinker. And now Van Jones is going, oh boy, he seems kind of dark. He seems kind of, and Scott Jennings, like, this guy has always been who he said he is. I don't know why any of you are surprised by this. Sam Mirejovsky on the What's Right Media Network. Back in a moment.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, attorney, truth teller, patriot, God-fearing American here behind the What's Right microphone. Day after the election, sobering day for us Republicans, common sense people too. Look, none of this is a victory for common sense. Let me tell you that. One thing that I'd like to point out about the numbers in New York. There's a lot of data. And we'll talk about the data here as the week goes on, and it's instructive. But there's one particular snapshot of data that I think is fascinating, and that is the length of residency in New York City. This is wild. If you lived in New York City for less than 5 years, 83% of those people voted for the socialist Mamdani. 5 to 10 years, 76%. 10 plus years, 54%. And only 34% of native-born New Yorkers voted for the socialist. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who moves to New York isn't from isn't from the country, right? Isn't from America. I'm not saying that every person that has moved to New York is an immigrant that's come here in the last 5 years, but a large number of them are. You can radically remake an electorate by bringing in a bunch of new people. Now, I'll tell you what else is true. There is no question that the voters, Republican voters that have fled New York State, that have fled New Jersey, that have fled California, are a negative drag on common sense reforms and any kind of hope for a Republican victory. I mean, the New Jersey election is an example of this. So, Mickey Cheryl won 56 to 43%, margin of 13%. You looked at some of the individual districts, and you realize that they were ones that in the last race had actually performed better 4 years before. Now, DeSantis, speaking last night from Florida, talking about the election, said, well, listen, these Republicans that are fleeing are just making the states they leave more blue, right? They're making their states more blue.
Well, first of all, Jack would have won 4 years ago, and he would have won tonight if you just take all the Republicans who've left New Jersey since I've been governor and moved to Florida. If they could have still voted in New Jersey, he would have won both of those races. Same thing with New York City, maybe not a Republican, but, Giuliani would not be able to win with this electorate the way it is now. Because what happens, Sean, is a leftist politician gets in, whether it's destroying a state like California, Illinois, New York, whether it's a city like New York City or Chicago. And the people that it tends to drive off are the center-right voters. And so when they leave, the resulting electorate is actually more liberal. That's how you go from Lori Lightfoot to Brandon Johnson in Chicago, which is digging the hole deeper. That's why you've gone from 8 years of de Blasio, now leapfrogging here 4, to have Mamdani, who's even going to be worse.
Exactly. So, and by the way, I have to admit this is a, mea culpa here. I bailed on California. I call myself Nevada's favorite recovering Californian for a reason. And to our new friends over at KMET, welcome, by the way. Great to be with you here for the first full week. Perfect timing because, of course, there's a lot going on. And by the way, I'd love to hear from you. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. Email me or hit me up on X, on Twitter if you're on there, @whatsrightsam. I'd love to hear from you particularly if you're new to the show and have discovered us on our new Signal, new partner station in Southern California. So, but where am I going with this, right? So I left, right? I bailed on California. Grew up in Orange County. Now the Orange County, by the way, voted for Prop 50. This is Orange County when I was a kid was Republican. But the Bush era devastated the Republican Party, and particularly in places like California. So again, anybody that tells you it's Trump, he's too extreme. Vanilla Republicans like Bush, consensus Republicans like Bush, lost California. Together with, of course, the great disaster that was Arnold Schwarzenegger. I still remember, my parents didn't have a lot of means growing up, and I, so they wouldn't donate to political causes. But I remember, and my dad will correct me if this is a mistake, but one of the few times I think my parents ever donated any kind of money, and it was just a few bucks, but the symbolism was meaningful, was to Schwarzenegger. And Robbie, you were in California at the time. You remember this. I bet your parents, I don't know, I presume it was talk at the dinner table at the very least. Mike Davis was this sad little man, you know, and you remember Mike Davis? No, Gray Davis. Oh my gosh, how can I forget that? Gray Davis. Gray Davis was, you know how in Little Mermaid, Ursula the Sea Witch, you know, gets the little unfortunate souls and draws them into her lair and then shrinks them down into these little gray worms, little sea worms. That is what Gray Davis was. Basically, if Schwarzenegger was testosterone and masculinity, Gray Davis was that. And Schwarzenegger said all of the right stuff. Remember this? He said all of the right stuff. You wake up, they tax you. You go to work, they tax you. You drive, they tax you. They tax you. And my parents sent him some money. And I don't think there has been a greater political disappointment in my parents' life than Arnold Schwarzenegger. And with it, bringing doom to the entire Republican Party in the state of California. And Bush just finished the rest. So is there hope? There has to be hope. I'm a hopeful person. But I don't know I don't know where New York goes. I don't know where California goes. I don't know what the answer is here. Do we just all move, you know? My hope is we save Nevada. Nevada's still sort of purple. We got to save Nevada. At least I'm counting on that. All right, be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. The What's Right Show brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Common Sense Conservatism brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law. Not your typical billboard lawyer, not one of these crash clowns, a real law firm. Real people, real human beings that will take care of your case and get you on your path to better today. 1-800-304-2000. 1-800-304-2000. Your personal injury case is not a DIY project. And you also can't afford to have some TV bozo representing you. Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust, because you deserve what's right. Now, Chuck Schumer, friends, yesterday, Election Day, held a rally, and he really got dark. This is why people saying that Mamdani getting dark in his victory speech, people are all very dark, basically calling Republicans racist, throwing everything he possibly could. And this is the man orchestrating the entire government shutdown, bringing misery to the country just to score political points. This is what it sounded like. And it ought to ring in the ears of every Republican listening, which is why I'm playing it today. And I may continue playing this over and over again.
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did in the SAVE Act, which went back to took Jim Crow for the whole nation. By so making it hard, they said you need ID, and they made it so hard to show ID that probably half the people in America couldn't vote. We wouldn't let it pass. The Democrats, they needed our vote. They went to court. Many of us, Durbin, myself, and others, were lead plaintiffs, and we beat them in court. But it shows why we need legislation. Because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy. We do.
This is nonsense. We know it's nonsense. We know that this is an unbelievable hyperbole, calling all of us Republicans racist because we just want to hurt, brown people, black people, disenfranchised voters. It's insane stuff. But the problem is that for the Democratic base, they believe it, and they will excuse this kind of language. Frankly, they'll excuse even worse language. I had a listener email me earlier today, David, writing, Sam, I would defiantly move if I lived in Virginia. I would not want to live around people who elect that guy attorney general in Virginia. They may have speaking of Virginia, may have passed, David writing, may have passed California as the worst state. I mean, David, I agree with you. But to your point, the Virginia voters were not concerned at all with these texts and allegations, not allegations, obvious evidence that their new, soon-to-be Attorney General wanted to kill children. Listen.
If you look at some of the questions over the J. Jones texts and that scandal from text back to 2022 and how this is affecting the Attorney General's race there, possibility of a split ticket, we asked voters what best describes their opinion of those leaked texts. Almost half found them to be disqualifying. About 1 in 4 said they were concerning, but then another 1 in 4 said they weren't concerned or they hadn't heard enough about it. So we'll see how they cast their vote when those numbers start to come in.
Okay. Didn't care. David, you're right. They didn't care. If you live in Virginia, you're a Republican, your neighbors are perfectly fine with somebody talking about your kids and telling them, hey, I want to shoot the little fascists. Do you know what the sucky thing about this is? Can I say sucky? I'm going to say it. It's a word. I probably haven't used it since elementary school. The thing about this is that if a Republican talked about murdering, I don't know, kids of a prominent Democrat or anybody in politics, I mean, I'd be the first person standing up saying this is outrageous and terrible. This person's despicable. But I think, sadly, the new rules are, if we're the only side that is disqualifying people for this tweet, that text, that thought, then we're eventually going to end up without any allies in our party, and our party's going to dissolve. This is what the Democrats do. They stick together no matter what. They stick together no matter how despicable the person is. They stick together. They stuck together around Joe Biden, who 3 days ago was seen walking around, getting out of his car, going to dinner, and he's like shuffling. The guy gone. And he was gone. And the Democrats are all saying, no, nothing to see here. We could take an example from the Democrat Unity book, my friends. Well, I'm not saying that I don't value the fact that we have robust political discourse and disagreements on our side. But we need to rally around Republicans that win. Okay? Trump wins. And he has won. And by the way, I'm telling you, if the Republicans rigged the election in 2020 for a Republican who won like Joe Biden won in 2020, and the Democrats were in the White House and were in the Senate, you're telling me they wouldn't have overturned the election? That they wouldn't have gone further than even Trump did? Because Trump called for a peaceful protest and Pence said no, and that was the end of it. That's all that happened, other than obviously the violence that occurred that may have very well been instigated by people in the know. I'm just saying, and you think this new brand of Democrat out there, this new socialist, when Mamdani says, I'm unapologetically Muslim, well, it sounds great. I mean, it's a nice religion, right? But you start to look at the discourse of this father, who is a Columbia professor, talking about America being such a despicable, a colonialist power, and his ties to a country, Uganda, that is very illiberal, where because of Islam, gay rights don't even think about it, right? I mean, but the New Yorkers don't care about any of these. The Democrats don't care any about it. It's just so, and we're sitting here pulling our hair out. How can they not see this? The only way to fix this is to be strong, to be powerful, to absolutely exert and use the power that we have. And when they come at us and say, no kings, we say, damn right we're kings. We're in control now. Sit down, shut up, do what you're told, or get the F out of the way. It has to be the approach. And that actually will persuade voters going, yeah, that's a government that gets stuff done. I have a friend met for dinner last night in the midst of this whole election meltdown. My buddy is currently dating. He's a serial dater, hasn't been married. So currently dating a young woman, a nice person from El Salvador. And she's a nice lady. Yeah, but this is my point. He's now traveling to El Salvador a lot. And he tells me the country is so safe. And they love this president that they have, Nayib Bukele. Now, you know what the story is, right? I mean, he basically comes into office. He says, all of you in the opposition, shut up. I'm in charge now. Daddy's home. We're here. And proceeds to quickly, in a short period of time, basically incarcerate every single criminal in the country. My buddy goes there and stays with his girlfriend and leaves the door. They leave their doors unlocked at night. That was unheard of 5 years ago. Bukele didn't get caught up on sensitivities to the minority party and to the opposition and being nice. He went in there. He goes, we're going to save the gosh dang country is what we're going to do. And he has. They've saved the country. They're doing it. They're making it happen. I guess my point in this is we need to take a lesson out of that. By the way, the other lesson I have for the left, I asked my buddy, so does it feel prosperous? He goes, oh no, Sam, El Salvador is so poor. So I look at him. He's not a political guy, right? He's conservative, but not into politics too much. I said to him, so I guess poverty does not lead to crime, does it? Something for our friends on the left to remember. El Salvador is a very inconvenient example on a number of fronts. But again, socialists winning in this country telling us the reason we have crime is because there's social inequality. That's why we have it. No, mother effers, the reason we have crime is because we're letting criminals out of jail. Full stop. Be right back, folks. Don't go anywhere. More of the What's Right show on the What's Right Media Network next. All right, folks. I know. It's been a day, but trust me, we're going to get through this. Sam@whatsrightshow.com. Sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. @whatsrightsam on X, where you can find me. I didn't tweet a lot last night. I went to that dinner that I mentioned just now, and my son had a water polo game and they lost. It was just everything yesterday was not going well. So I come to work today. Great productive day at the office. Doing the show now, and it's cathartic, right? We're going through it. We have an action plan. I've come a long way on this. I'm telling you, the way forward here, Republicans have a short period of time to ditch the filibuster. Go in and save the country. Now, Thune claims he doesn't have the votes. So Trump is going to have to lean on these senators. He cannot rely on John Thune to get across the finish line here. It's not going to happen. Also, and I hear this a lot, Zohran Mamdani in New York, it's going to be so bad, people are going to realize they're going to come back to Republicans. Stop that. That is cope. That is absolute cope. People in Europe, where elections are much more secure than they are here, meaning you really have to prove your identity and you've got it, it's cleaner, is my point. More reliable. People there are having, the crime is skyrocketing because of illegal and legal migration from terrible places like Syria, Afghanistan, parts of North Africa. And people still vote for open border policies, right? So you're not going to get through to people. You are going to win. We, as Republicans, can win if we offer a compelling alternative that focuses on affordability. That was the issue that drove voters to Mamdani. And the fact of the matter is, I'm kind of laughing at this, and you know this, that New York is largely unaffordable because of Democrats. I mean, what's the tax? The taxes in New York are rapacious. And on top of that, you have rent control. You have very expensive to develop properties there. There's a lot of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations cost money. People don't realize this in kind of normally unless they are in building or in development and construction. You know, they call them soft costs, but there's nothing soft about them. They hit hard, right? And it's some percentage of the project. And I have seen developments. In fact, I've got one, you know, somebody came to me with a deal recently. I looked at this development project, and the soft costs actually are what make the project too expensive to pencil. And that happens in New York. So on one hand, you have taxes, you have fees, you've got all this regulation. It's difficult to get things approved. You've got to wait. Of course, time is money. What happens if you've got to wait to develop something? Well, you buy a piece of land or you buy an existing building, and you're paying money on that money, right? That's money that is out of your pocket or that you've taken a big loan for. And every month that goes by that the government, that the city of New York isn't allowing you to develop a piece of property, is costing you money and getting added to and cutting into your profit. Okay? So eventually you get, you know, you build it, whatever, and then all of a sudden they come along and say, well, we need a portion of this for rent control. We need subsidized housing and this, and all of a sudden, what's in it for you? Why the hell are you developing? There's no profit in this. So you don't build it. And when you don't build that building, what happens? Every other building now, there's more people coming into the city, more people entering, lots of immigration. They keep flooding people in because, of course, welcome everybody. That's the Democratic Party platform. But not enough housing. It is a deliberate effort to make housing more unaffordable so that they then can argue that that we should support socialism. It's literally the same thing as with Obamacare. Oh, we're going to bring about Obamacare. It's getting expensive. Who saw that coming? We didn't. But guess what? Now we need a single payer system. Democrats break things, destroy them, and then tell you that you need government to fix it. It's classic leftism. They break it, and then they put themselves out there as a solution. What was the shutdown? Democrats made the shutdown, and then they presented themselves as the alternative. Since Republicans, quote unquote, aren't doing anything, and they have the power. So this is my closing argument to Republicans. This is my closing argument to every person in government, but to us, the people, because we send these clowns to represent us. The Democrats shut down the government and then told the world that the Republicans did it, that they're the ones with all the power. Our mistake was not using the power that we have. Our mistake was playing nice with people who are terrorists. And I don't mean, I'm calling Mamdani a terrorist. I mean political terrorists, right? Literally having federal workers get furloughed, lose their jobs, go without pay, miss mortgage payments now. Do all of that just to win. They're willing to do that. If we don't fight the same way, we're going to lose. You can't fight, you can't compete against someone playing fair when they're playing dirty. I don't know what else I can tell you. I don't make the rules. Don't shoot the messenger, especially if you're Jay Jones, right? So this is what it is. And are they defeatable? Are they so smart? Are they so brilliant? No. They're just immoral. And so it's really easy when you don't have any rules that you play by. It's really easy when you can just run roughshod over the whole process and not care. And it's all about winning. The rules are set by common consensus. This is a very important point. And right now, our common consensus, for whatever reason, seems to be that Republicans ought to play by the rules and Democrats can cheat. And who set that rule? Republicans, particularly Senate Republicans, who believe in decorum and decency and doing the right thing, blah, 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 blah. Particularly those. And, of course, a handful of Senate Republicans, Mitch McConnell, who's still there for now, and, of course, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, so at least three Republicans who are never going to do anything to help Trump politically. Not going to happen. Now, America fundamentally still is not a socialist country. It's not who we are. And the sooner that we tighten up immigration, the sooner we tighten up elections, the sooner we voter ID, right? Push through the agenda. Make our elections secure again. And all of a sudden, we're going to find out that politically, there's a lot of power behind a compelling Republican agenda. But there has to be a compelling Republican agenda. We have to awaken the spirit of Trump and awaken the spirit of Newt Gingrich, 1994 contract with America. What can Republicans do for you? And the Republican brand needs to be resurrected, polished, salvaged, and improved. Because right now there is no Republican brand. There's the Trump brand. And then you've just got Republicans in the House. And you got, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene going on The View, taking pot shots at Trump. I mean, Jesus. All right. My work here is done, at least for today. Keep the faith. Sam Mirejovsky here, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, the only law firm to trust for your personal injury case. I'll see you tomorrow, folks. Hang in there.